Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Joined, as always, by my good friends, Ostrander and Grant Turner. Before we get into it, boys, I owe Dalton Roberts a sincere and heartfelt apology. Last week on the podcast, when we mentioned who won Greco, I incorrectly said Ildar Havisov had. And in my mind, it was because he was the number one seed, but I got it wrong. You got to own it when you get it wrong. Dalton's dad DM me last night, deservedly upset. It is good to know he's watching and listening to the podcast. So Joe and Dalton, I am sincerely sorry. No excuses. I got to get it better, and I will. And congratulations on winning the tournament, and good luck at the last chance qualifier to qualify for the Olympic Games. So having said that, good morning, boys. GT, when is the last chance qualifier? Is that next weekend in Turkey on the 11th?
Yes. All three styles, all in Istanbul. I believe it's May 9th through the 12th. And the last three spots for the Olympic Games will be solidified there. Finalists and a true third.
So let's walk through that. So there's a full bracket that, people are posting those brackets now, primarily UWW and Flow, but probably other sources. So let's walk through a scenario where, say, you make the finals, you beat Mark in the semifinals, and you beat me in the quarterfinals. All the guys that lost in the round of 32 wrestles the round of 16 loser to you. The winner of that would wrestle me. The winner of that would wrestle Mark. Then there's an identical path on the bottom. Let's say Mark comes out. Mark wrestles that person that lost to the other, after coming all the way through the repechage. And that's a true third match. And normally they do not wrestle true thirds at international tournaments. There's like 2 bronze medals at the Olympics and the World Games. So this is unique. This is what we do in America all the time, whether we wrestle for third place. And this is a big difference, and I'll say this to you, GT, because you live in this world more than Mark does. It's a huge difference from 2020 Olympics, which were 21, where only the finalists made it, and the top 6 from the Worlds came in, because they had a true 5th place at the Worlds in 2023, correct?
Correct.
So something to keep an eye out for. We're obviously rooting. So on the women's side, all 6 have qualified. On the men's Greco side, the first 3 weights are attempting to qualify, which are Dalton Roberts and Ellis Coleman and Kamal Bey. Got those names right. And then on the men's freestyle side, 57 and 65, which are Spencer Lee and Nick and Zane Rutherford, excuse me. So we'll be seeing a lot of stuff about draws. Will you be in Turkey next week, GT?
Yep, I leave on Tuesday, be able to land on Wednesday. Tournament starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then fly home on Monday.
Gotcha. So Mark, you and I will be flying solo next week. So I guess, Grant, while we've got you on this and kind of give you the floor, because we won't talk about it next week, I think most of the fans follow the 2 men's freestyle weights the most. On paper, I guess sentimentally, everybody's like, well, Spencer and Zane are going to qualify their weights respectively. How difficult of a path is this going to be for those 2 guys?
I think legitimately it's always difficult to go to the last chance qualifier, because literally all of the Continental Championship people that have not qualified, or even some, and once again, I think that there's not a necessarily level playing field. I think, for instance, like the European Championships and maybe the Asian Championships have a little bit more depth when it comes to specific styles of wrestling. So, for instance, like in Greco, it might be a little bit more difficult to qualify at the World Championships, and then your Pan Ams is very difficult as well, because the top 15 teams in the entire world in Greco maybe are coming from the Asian and European Championships. So you have some very heavy hitters when it comes to that, when it comes to how the field is set for that. So I'm going to pull up something here. I believe this was from either like UWW or Flow or somebody like that, put a list of kind of people together that are going to be in the bracket for Spencer. I mean, just to call out a few names. Oh yeah, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna really butcher some.
Don't worry about the names. Just list the credentials. Just do the credentials. That's fine.
Well, I think some of the things that probably one of the biggest people that are in the bracket for Spencer is Suleiman Atli from Turkey. He's been a world medalist multiple time Olympian. He is someone to look out for because he's always relevant at 57 and has been for a very long time. So make sure you check that name out in the bracket to find out on what side he is, either on the same side as Spencer or not. I would say Zandabad from Mongolia, another guy that has medaled at multiple, Asian championships and has been one of their guys for a while. There's Digjinis Vili from Georgia. He was one that was in a controversial match at the European Championships that ended up like not winning that match and then basically didn't qualify. So Georgia, Sarlak from Iran, another guy that you got to watch out for on that side of the bracket. Once again, I don't know a lot of his credentials specifically, but in the country of Iran, a freestyler that is not quite qualified, somebody that you should definitely make sure that you find out where they are in the bracket. And I'd say Horst Lehr, another guy from Germany, very, very talented wrestler. I believe we wrestled him before at a world championships, meaning the United States athlete has wrestled him. He's somebody that is very formidable. And then Valenjov from Bulgaria is another person that is on my radar of someone to like definitely take a look at and find out where they are in the bracket. With this being, a true kind of wrestleback, which is very similar to the Worlds, like, hey, you better lose to the right guy in order for them to make finals, and then you got to be able to work your way back and then beat the other guy from the other side in order to qualify. So this is a very interesting tournament format, very similar to the World Championships where you had to get the true fifth match.
Yes.
Not only win your bronze medal match, but then you got to go get, or if you lose that bronze medal match, then you got to wrestle another, basically your true fifth match. But I think as we look or do a deep dive into a lot of these weight classes, it becomes like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. That guy's really good. And I think that people maybe don't understand how difficult this bracket is, even for our previous athletes such as J.O. or, Frank Molinaro, when he qualified the weight class, being the 9 seed at the Olympic trials champion, has to go to, or I think it was Sofia, Bulgaria or Mongolia in order at the time to be able to qualify the weight and then go on to the Olympics and then be in a medal match as well. Like it's just a hard grind.
And Frank didn't actually qualify the weight. Like he was the first alternate and then a positive drug test got him in. So there's a couple other things to point out here. And that was a great breakdown for us, GT. First of all, most of these guys on our side are not going to get seeded because like Spencer didn't do enough in, he wasn't wrestling in UWW events to get any seeding points. Rutherford was wrestling at 70, not 65, and seeding points from non-Olympic weights don't carry over to Olympic weights. And then Dalton Roberts, again, sorry for the correction, but he was not representing us at a lot of international meets. Ellis Coleman hadn't wrestled in 2.5 years. Kamal may have some points. He's probably the only guy that has a chance to have seeding points. And so, Mark, I mean, you're in Iowa. You guys both are, but, you have friends closer to that Iowa program than I do. This is super important to Iowa. The Spencer Lee makes the Olympics. Like, I mean, winning the trials, then if he doesn't make it is a massive disappointment to them. And I'm not sure that people realistically, I mean, I believe they'll do it, but I don't know how much of that's my heart and how much of that's my brain.
Yeah, so, I mean, no, I understand what you're saying, David. I think anybody that knows wrestling in the state of Iowa, and I think they're very knowledgeable people here in Iowa, know how hard it is to make the Olympic team, especially when you have one tournament and that's it. Everything rides on one tournament, and everybody that's good that has not qualified is going to be there, and they're only taking 3 guys. So I think people understand that in the state of Iowa, but I think people think Spencer's good enough to do it. And, you know, I'm one of those that think he's good enough to do it. I think him being at the Olympics, he's got as good a chance to win it as anybody. So that's, you know, what I think. And that's what a lot of Iowa people think just because of his style. He's a much better freestyler than he was folk style wrestler. He's really good on his feet, and his parterre is out of this world. He can turn you from so many different positions. And he's actually looks like he's getting into shape again. I mean, he's rounding into shape, which is a big plus for Spencer because he scored a lot of points against Gilman in that last match, you know, in the third period or the second period toward the end with less than a minute to go to win the match, you know. So I think that's a big thing, and it's a big thing for the Iowa Hawkeye Wrestling Club. Chad Beatty is the director of it. So, you know, I put a lot of faith in Spencer. I know how good Zane Rutherford is, and I think he's probably got a little tougher road than Spencer does because his bracket's loaded also.
Well, to kind of make this, try to explain this to people, let's say theoretically the 5 best athletes placed 1st through 5th at the Worlds, which isn't always the case. But let's just say that happened, okay? So the top 5 are off the board. What GT was saying, and I'm going to say it back a different way, and GT, if this isn't what you meant, correct me, but it is not a safe assumption to say that the numbers 6 through 13 are evenly dispersed throughout the 4 continentals. Like, that's not the case in most weights. Like, in some cases, I mean, like, actually the Pan Ams are usually one of the weaker ones. America's great, but a lot of these other countries are not great. So you might have had 5 people in the Euros that could make the Olympics, and only, say, 1 made it into the top 5 at Worlds, and 2 of those 4 made it through their continental. Those other 2 now filter into this last chance bracket. I think some people are just thinking we're only going to see the number 14 ranked guy on down in the weight. And well, if Spencer can't be one of the 14 best in the world, he doesn't deserve to go to the Olympics. Like, it's not the case. You might have the number 7 ranked guy in the world and the number 9 ranked guy in the world up there because of how the continentals broke out. Am I explaining that correctly, Grant?
Yeah. And I mean, once again, we can specifically talk about 57 kilos for men's freestyle just to prove this point, right? So if we look at who's qualified for the weight classes already, Serbia, which is Micic in the EU. So that's 1 for the EU. Ray Higuchi from the Asian qualifier. Obakarov from the European one.
So stop for 1 second. So now everybody in the Euros after those 2 had to go to the Continentals.
Well, we're going through the World Championships. Then we're going to go through each, like basically the whole thing. So right now at the World Championships, 3 Armenia. World Championship 5th place was Ugiev from Russia. So there's 4 now from the European already, and we have 1 from Asia. Now we go to the Pan Ams. Roman Bravo Young, so that doesn't count. Puerto Rico, Darian Cruz, doesn't count. Kyrgyzstan, Asia. Uzbekistan, Asia. Azerbaijan, Euros. So that's 5 now. Another AIN, so probably Belarus, that's 6. Egypt from the Oceanic, and Guinea-Bissau from Africa. So we're talking about basically out of the entire field, just at 57 kilos so far, 6 from the European Championship sector, 3 from whatever, or 2 or 3 from the Asian sector, that then goes back down without your other continental. So the 2 from Africa, 2 from the Pan Ams, and then basically, another 2 from Euros. Now we go to the last chance qualifier, and then the whole field from everything else. So it's a little top heavy for the European sector or continental championship. And once again, that's just men's freestyle. Like, if we were to go through this entire exercise for everything, you would be like, okay, these are powerful continental championships when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting tidbit, and we're on USA Wrestling's airwaves, but like at 57, RBY is in and Cruz is in, and we're not. And at 65, Gomez is in, and Sebastian Rivera, who had an unbelievable run at the Worlds to get through, and he earned it. But I don't think most people would consider him one of the 13 best guys in the world. I mean, like in our world, he doesn't, never won an NCAA title. He's in, and we're not as America. So it's just going to be super interesting. Mark and I will do our best to do a preview next week on it. There'll be a lot of good articles that come out, Mark, that we can run through, and I'll let you pronounce all the hard last names because that's really your specialty. So
I'm gonna be sick that day. So
great. That's what everybody wants, is to hear 60 seconds of a monologue or 60 minutes of a monologue. That's perfect. Yeah. So, all right. So it's important just for people to know what's going on there. Let's go over to college wrestling. So we'll talk about non-portal things first. Tom Ryan, I spoke to Amy Rosselli, who told me that he's recovering nicely. I think we're all reading the articles as well, but it was if you looked at the car and then you looked at his injuries, he actually did pretty good. It could have been a lot worse. So thoughts and prayers to Tom Ryan and Buckeye Nation. And I think, GT, you said it last week, they deserve like 7 years of good luck after what happened with Tom Ryan and Sasso. And I know things get heated where people root for certain teams, but I think in the end, you want your team to win, but you want your team to beat the best representatives from all these other schools. Like, you don't want them to show up with 9 of the 10 people out of the lineup and they're wrestling their JV guys. So we're rooting for Tom Ryan to heal quickly. Zach Tonelli to Virginia Tech. And that's Cody Brewer went to Princeton. Tonelli comes into Virginia Tech. So Columbia needs a new head coach. And if you're kind of reading the headlines, there's some crazy things going on in the University of Columbia right now, or Columbia University, like just politically what's going on in that campus. But they need a head coach. Mark, Tonelli is one of the best clinicians in the country, technicians in the country. VTech just reloads. They take a really great lightweight coach or a guy who's a lightweight and bring in another great coach who's a lightweight. Feels like they're right where they are, which is another top 10 team again with great coaching.
Yeah, I think anytime you can get a head coach who's started to build a program like Columbia and you get to bring him in onto your coaching staff, it can only help you as a program. And it's not like Virginia Tech needed a lot of help in the first place. They bring in quality kids. So, I mean, they're not going to get hurt out of this. I thought Brewer was a, great addition also. So, I mean, I think it's a win-win for both teams. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk a little bit about coaching. We talked a little bit about this. Donnie Benson takes over at Buffalo, and Ben Bennett hires internally at Central Michigan. And the big coaching job that's still out there is Oklahoma State. And everything I'm hearing is it's going to be Coleman Scott. And it's just interesting because they had to wait 5 days, and they've certainly waited longer than 5 days. And I couldn't really get a straight answer from people there if it was 5 days or 5 business days, but it's way longer than 5 or 7 days. We're getting into the portal, and that'll talk a little bit about Oklahoma State's team. But theoretically, on paper, they lose. Well, for sure, they lose Dayton's points and they lose Olenek's points. If you believe that DJ Hamady can replace Olenek's points, then if they find somebody or some combination of people to replace Dayton's points, then theoretically they should be better, just that the other guys improve. And Oklahoma State's certainly not happy with, finishing like 18th, 14th, and 10th in the last 3 years, that kind of thing. And GT and I were texting last night, I think, about a possible lineup and how salty that lineup could be, and possibly 8 All-Americans. But, they're like everybody. They got bubble guys, right? And, like Mark, you're a Drake Ayala guy. I know that because of Tanner and Bobby Thompson and all the folks you have on the staff at Iowa that you're friends with. But Spratley goes, went overtime with them in the duel and really close at the NCAAs. And if it coin flips the other way, Iowa doesn't place as high as they do, and Oklahoma State places a lot higher, even if Spratley were to take 6th, because he lost his next match. And that's 8-point difference.
Yep.
So the Oklahoma State thing is super interesting. Let's talk about the portal. I guess before we talk about portal, Carter Starachi's coming back, boys. So I guess 3 questions. Does he win his 5th title, which I think we would all say is probably yes. What weight does he go? And how much do we think the bag was? GT, you want to weigh in on either of those two?
Well, I as a collegiate wrestling fan, I am excited to have Carter Starachi back with the potential to be a 5-time national champion, which is like wild to say in general. But I think the other thing with Carter too, that I would like to see him be at like a full healthy season. There was so much intrigue around his injury at NCAAs and then directly right into the, Olympic trials and all that kind of thing. So I'm very excited about Carter being back in the collegiate wrestling game because once again, I think we all know that once you move on to be a professional, like the light kind of dims a little bit. Like you don't have as much of a platform for you to, be in the wrestling eye. So yes. I like having him in the public view because it's a great storyline. It's something that we'll be talking about the entire collegiate season on him, potentially Hodge Trophy, him going for his 5th title. What does that weight class look like? Where is he at? I think Carter at 74 or 84 makes a lot of sense depending upon once again, the transfer portal and who all comes in and how big the guys are that are behind them. What are they going to, and once again, these are great situational problems to have, Mark. Like when you have depth in your room and you're like, oh, well, I could put him out here and get 3rd and I could get this guy out here and he could get 2nd. And it's like, well, which way do we go? Right. So between, Haynes, Facundo, Kasich, Barr, Starachi, Cochran,
Zach Ryder.
Right. There's
Marisola. Let's just keep naming people, guys. I mean, there's not very many of them. We probably got only about 30 that are, top ranked in the country all on one team. So
Joe Seeley's coming in. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So this is all very positive for the Penn State faithful that once again, Carter Starachi is back in the lineup. That's kind of some guaranteed points. I would think as a 4-time NCAA champion and one of the mainstays of their college. So
pencil him in for 7th place points minimum.
I think you're if you're doing the math, which I dislike math a lot, he's going to get you some points.
Yes, sir. Mark, what weight do you think he goes?
I don't know. He had a conversation with Kel. He said when I listen to these guys talk on social media, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. But he said Kel had mentioned 97 to him. So that's a big jump. I don't know how big he can get in 6 months. So that's kind of a scary thought, him being at 97, but he does move really well. I'm not sure there's not anybody he couldn't beat at 97. And that opens up a whole avenue for these guys, at 84, 74, 65, 57. I mean, so maybe 97. I'm guessing probably 84 makes more sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, so Willie put out on Rockfin kind of their depth chart. And for 24-25, he has Lillidow at 25, Nagao with Braden Davis probably redshirting at 33, Bartlett and Kasich at 41. Kasich can redshirt. Van Ness or Kasich at 49. He has Kasich in at 57. And, that's interesting because Barraclaw went into the portal. So Barraclaw must know something, that he wasn't going to be the guy there. He doesn't have Haynes listed on the depth chart for this year. So, I mean, he has him redshirting, or he does, excuse me. He's got him at 65 along with Messenbrink, Joe Seeley, Levi Haynes. So Messenbrink cannot redshirt. I believe he did his redshirt at Calbat. He's got Facundo or Zach Ryder at 74. He's got Starachi and Barr at 84, 97, respectively, with Lucas Cochran also at 97. and Mirasola at 97, and then Kerkvliet and the other Mirasola at 285. So, I mean, if I had to guess their lineup, I'd go Lilladal, Nagao, Bartlett, Van Ness. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't really know about 57. I'm not sure Joe Seeley can't make 57. I don't know if Messenbrink can make 57. And then they just wrestle Haynes at 65. I know they said Haynes was cutting a lot of weight. I think Facundo 74. And then the Starachi Bar thing. GT, do you remember off the top of your head, did Bar go 79 or 86 this last weekend?
I think at U20s?
Yes.
I can't recall.
We'll pull it up. But, I mean, that's a big difference. He's going 174 or 189, and that would kind of give you an indicator. Starachi's super special. I have a hard time seeing him just get big enough for 97, like GT's saying, but it doesn't mean it can't happen for sure. So, speaking
I don't think he goes 97. There's no way in my mind that he would go that far up. I mean, he would look like Hidlay out there. Like, he would have to put on some serious mass.
So what's great about it, I think you're right. You know what's great about that? Parker Keckheisen, Carter Starachi, right? Because Parker Keckheisen went undefeated, amazing bonus rate this year, consideration for the Hodge. And you're talking about, I mean, Starachi was not undefeated, but I think for most of us, he was undefeated. He had two other guys get their hands raised when he had to wrestle for 1 second, but, he didn't lose a match that he actually tried to wrestle in. So, that would be an amazing storyline along with, there's a bunch of them coming out, but I'd be near I can't imagine there's 3 other stories I'd be more interested in going in the season on the individual matchups than that one, right, Mark?
Yeah. I mean, who would he wrestle at 97? Who's going to be the number 1 ranked guy if Starachi's not there?
They pull it
Who's
up.
the highest place you're coming back? I mean, that
Stephen Buchanan.
Okay.
Or Rocky Elam. Is he back?
Elam's back. And I mean, that now you're getting in all these cool conversations like Aiden Sinclair. Does he start right away? Brooks was first. Hidlay was second. Buchanan was third. Cardenas is fourth. So 3 and 4 are back. Tanner Sloan graduated. Rocky Elam's back. Stephen Little is back. And I think Michael Beard is back. So that we lose numbers 1, 2, and 5 out of the bracket. So everyone else.
But if I put Starachi up against any of those guys, David, even being undersized at 97, I still probably pick him to win. So, I mean, everybody's saying it's really hard to imagine him wrestling 97, and I agree with that. But he could still go out there and win that tournament. He's that good.
Yeah, I would tell you right now, Northern Iowa, Oklahoma State, Oregon State, South Dakota State are all rooting for him to go 97 because that deeply impacts Keckheisen, Plott, Munoz, Berge, just off the top.
Yep.
So wild times there, man, on what's going to happen with all that. All right, so GT, you and I were in Vegas, rubbing elbows with different people. By the way, great to see Shane and Eddie. Big things are happening when Eddie pops into town. So awesome to see those guys. But the big news, I think you and I were, I shouldn't say what news you were hearing. You're probably hearing more than I am, but portal was kind of the big conversation on who was going in and how much and everything else. So Parco is in the portal. And the rumor is, when I say rumor, I have this from a very, very reliable source, that he wants $200,000 or he's not going to wrestle. And, I think Parco was 5th this year, maybe 6th. That's 9-10 points plus bonus. And I think we're literally, this is the fascinating thing to me. And GT, you said this earlier, you don't like math. I love math. Okay. And we can insert jokes later when the broadcast is over, but I love math. And I think it is suddenly becoming how many points are worth how much money. It literally feels like that's what the portal's becoming. it's just a mathematical equation. Like, okay, if we buy this guy and we get 12 more points, where does that put our team? And Hendrickson's in the portal, and Mark and I had this conversation yesterday, and Andrew Alirez is in the portal. These are the three big names. Cooper Flynn is in the portal, who's really good but hasn't placed. I'll do it this way, Mark. If you can only rank them in order, the top three. Like if you could just pluck one of, let's say your team needs all three weights. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Look up in order. Lyra's probably one.
See, you and me had this conversation yesterday, and I disagreed with you.
Yeah.
I assume you're going.
Yeah, heavyweight 2, and then
Hendrickson
2, and then Parko 3.
All right, GT, same order or different?
I go Hendrickson, Alirez, Parko.
Yeah, so here's my argument for Hendrickson. Let's say he takes 4th. So that's 12.5 points. He's probably going to pin 3 guys or tech them. So now he's still going to get you to 17 points, and he could take better than 4th. Alirez, that weight brings back Mendez and Bartlett. Now, he can win it, but he could also take 3rd. And let's put it this way. If they both place the same thing, if they both place 2nd, 1st, 3rd, whatever, I would put a lot of money that Hendrickson out bonuses Alirez. And I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, like heavyweight's an interesting weight. You lose some guys. Bastida comes back who didn't place and who's awfully freaking good, but just Henderson he just bonuses like crazy, but it's really close, right? Like, I mean, like Mark, you don't feel super great about that decision, and GT and I probably don't, it's not, you wouldn't kick either one of the other guys off the team, and they'd be the best guy on most teams they would go to.
Yes. I did it also, David, because I was looking at Iowa, and this is a conversation we had, is if Iowa had the choice in order of those 3 guys, because I was thinking Alirez would stay and wrestle for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. I thought Hendrickson would have to go serve the military time, but you said he can serve it as an athlete, so he could wrestle for the Hawkeye Club and for the Air Force Academy, and I didn't know that. So, I mean, there's some stipulations there, but I was thinking overall, if they keep somebody in the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, they're on campus, they're working out with their college wrestlers, so on and so forth. That's how you build that RTC.
If you take the black and yellow glasses off and you just look at it at any program, and all right, you're starting a program.
I'm starting a program.
First pick. You get to pick these guys. Who are you taking?
Alirez.
Okay.
And the reason is he's a national champion.
Not arguing.
I have a returning national champion on my team.
Yeah. Well, GT, and I said this, and I'm going to say something. I told Mark this. I said when Alirez took the Olympic red shirt year, I said he's either going to make the team or he's going to go in the portal. Because if he doesn't make the team, there's a very convenient out for him to say, well, if I'd been somewhere else, I would have made it. So go ahead. I know you're going to say something.
Well, I think it's all of our looks and observations of, like, once again, I think we all know that Alirez and Parko and Hendrickson are all extremely talented All-American wrestlers, national champion wrestler for Alirez. Once again, I think it is also a plug and play situation. So, like, when we're talking about our math problems, it's like, I think that, like, if you look at, for instance, I'll use, Penn State, Iowa State, that are solidified at heavyweight. Maybe that point differential doesn't make any sense for them to go after that specific person. Now, I'd say there's only maybe like 4 teams that don't need a heavyweight caliber wrestler. It's like, okay, well, if you factor that into like your conversation and math, it's like, well, he's 20 some odd points. I already get 16. So the only upgrade I get if I spend all that money in order to get him is 4 points.
Right.
Or if you feel comfortable with, like, hey, listen, I can get 8 to 10 out of this cat. Let's go get somebody that could potentially win it and get me 24. here when maybe that's a 20-point swing upgrade from where we were at previously. So I think as you put your glasses on for whatever color or team that you're referring to, you can be like, well, without question, I need Parco. Right. Without question, like we need solidified that weight class. Or if you're going to go undefeated in duels, Parco's a really, really good wrestler. I think also having a national champion in Alirez in your room probably makes, whatever it is, 31, 33, 41, 49, 57 better for that season. And maybe you have some young cats that are coming up. It's like, well, maybe if they get some mentorship. So I think there's that coach point value math scenario that I think Mark also looks at too. And I think we all look at it that way because it's like, all right, well, yes, there's math involved and then there's money involved, but it's like, I think the greater potential for points swing is at heavyweight because I don't think that there's a lot more guys out there that are solidified way better than Wyatt Hendrickson in the collegiate landscape. And now, once again, you can say like Mendez and Bartlett and all these other guys that are in the middle. In the middle is a very tough weight class because there's a lot of guys returning and there's a lot of other guys. Yeah. Alirez could be very well the best guy out of all of them and be like, oh, yeah, that's great.
It's totally fair. So while you were talking, I pulled up the team scores from the tournament 2 months ago now. And besides Penn State, here are the scores from like second through, we'll take it down to 13th because then there's a big drop off. 70, I'm going to drop the fractions. 72, 71, 68, 67, 64, 64, 62, 60, 56, 49, 49. Okay. So if you look at those teams, like I'll tell you what I think and you guys can jump in. Cornell is not doing NIL. Michigan is definitely doing NIL. They lost Gomez. Parco makes sense. They lost Lucas Davison. Hendrickson makes sense. They've got Lemley at 41, but I believe he was a true freshman, so he could redshirt. So all three of those guys make sense there. Iowa State, they have a log jam at 49. They don't need him. They have Bastida back at heavyweight. They don't need him. And I'm not saying that Hendrickson's not better than these guys, but like this is the GT point of how marginal it is. 41, if Echemendia wants to move up, Alirez would be great there. Iowa, 41, 49, both make sense. Heavyweight, I think, really depends on Cassiope because if he's coming back, he has to use that year. And by the way, we need to talk about the lawsuit. Arizona State, Alirez makes sense. They're obviously losing Parco, but they have Kaylor Larkin, and they don't need heavyweight with Schultz. Virginia Tech doesn't generally dabble in the portal. Ohio State, they got Feldman at heavyweight. Those would both be upgrades at 41 and 49. Or not 41, excuse me, obviously not. At 49, that would be an upgrade. And so possibly Parco there. Nebraska, I don't remember the last time they went in the portal. And Oklahoma State, GT, was the name we kept hearing all weekend that's in on all these guys. And if you take Alirez over Tegan Jamison, which went 0-2, if you take Parco, who took 5th or 6th, over Jordan Williams, who went, I think, 1-2, and if you take Hendrickson over Connor Doucette, who I'm almost positive went 1-2, that is a massive upgrade. Like if you say Hendrickson scored 18 points, and if you added those in this year, Oklahoma State is second. They go from 10th to 2nd. So I think for people that are looking for possible homes, I mean, after that, you're at Missouri, or we hear Missouri's in on Hendrickson, North Carolina State. You're getting into schools now that just don't bid on these teams. So, I mean, I think it's going to be the usual suspects, but this is so many moving parts, right? Like for Iowa, if Cassiope comes back and you have loyalty to him, you don't go reach out to Hendrickson. And speaking of Iowa, the lawsuit came, 26 athletes for the illegal search and seizure of their data, including wrestlers. Pinheiro was not in the lawsuit I saw. Maybe I misread it, but I don't think I did because Pinheiro and I talked at NCAAs, and I'm hoping to get him on the podcast sometime this summer. But those guys are going to win because, I mean, the search was illegal. I did a podcast with Dresser a couple weeks ago, and it's going to come out USA Wrestling's been swamped with all these events, and now that it's slowed down a little bit, and I got to set up a WeTransfer account so GT doesn't have to keep sending the podcasts. I'm going to have him do it one more time, and then I'm going to set it up while he's in Turkey because Google Meet apparently is not working anymore towards Gary Abbott. But, I mean, okay, Mark, give me predictions. Where do they go? Who ends up where?
Wow. I'm going to say Alira's and Parco end up at Iowa. And I'm going to say Hendrickson ends up at Oklahoma State.
DT?
I think Alirez goes to Michigan. I think Parco goes to Iowa. And I think Wyatt Hendrickson goes to Oklahoma State.
I'm with GT on that, but it's close, right? Like, but a lot of it too, you think about it. If Iowa gets them both, how much, like, that's obviously a ton of money. They may not have enough money for both. Maybe they do. Maybe that's ludicrous to even suggest they don't. So
we got a new wrestling room in Iowa.
Yeah. I think those are
just trying to throw a tidbit out there. If these guys are listening, there's a new wrestling room there. Real nice. Real nice. Grant,
I don't know
that? That's so great.
Heard that?
Oh my God. Go ahead, GT.
I believe Mark said we have a new
yes.
Oh, that's the we versus us versus them versus mine. Like, oh wow.
Well, I do support. I do send
not even
my money every month to the University of Iowa's Hawkeye Wrestling Club. So there's a filtration there that I can say we. Now you guys probably don't do it, so I don't expect to hear we from you two. So
just not even the appearance of impartiality, GT. It's so great. Just came hard with the we and no apologies. Just a factual numerical explanation.
I'm done. David, I'm done apologizing. I'm just gonna say I helped run the program one way or another. I don't know how. But it does. I did see the wrestling room. It looks real good, Grant. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I saw some of the girls walk through it, and the guy, I think Flo did a thing with Tom with a walkthrough, which was really cool to see. And I think, we poke fun at Mark, but if you haven't seen the new facility, it is immaculate for wrestling. I don't think, I think that maybe goes unnoticed in our sport, that we build facilities that maybe look and feel more like football, basketball. Like, there's some money behind this facility. It's very, very impressive to see.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to try to run through the U20 freestyle brackets quickly and just kind of point some things out so people know. Luke Lillidow, All Tech Falls, and O-Dub at 57 kilos. And GT, just overall, and I talked to Ethan Kyle about this, I'm 99% sure I'm right. If you win U20s, you are now sitting in the finals to make the world team. You go to Geneva, Ohio, and someone else has to come through the whole tournament and then wrestle you 2 out of 3 the same day, correct?
I believe that is that. Yeah, I believe that's the case. Very similar to the U.S. Open and whatever, like final, like basically you're to a final X, and then you go basically, instead of having a mini tournament, like you're just wrestling best 2 out of 3.
Right, but if people are trying to compare this to the Olympic trials, it's not the same because it's the same day.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's these guys that won, this is a gigantic advantage, okay? Other sort of collegiate impact on this weight, Mendoza, who's a Mizzou recruit, techs Forrest, and then Vinny Kilcarry teched Mendoza, and then Lillidow teched Vinny, but Ohio State's got another good 125-pounder in the room. 61, Cale Hughes. He showed a lot of courage, man. He won the meet. But he was down 8-0 or 10-2 to Cody Land from UNI. Land almost gutted him out, didn't get the last gut. He comes all the way back, runs him down in the quarters. Then he goes tech fall in the semis over to Craker from UVA. Zan Fugit, my guy, made the quarters. Larkin made it to the finals. He's really freaking good. Cale Hughes beats him. So I think we need to put Cale Hughes on like the round of 16, round of 12, almost immediately kind of thing at 133. 65 kilos, which is 143 pounds. Aiden Valencia beat Manville in the semis. Aiden Valencia beat Lemley in the quarters. Bo Bassett wins the bracket. Huge day for him. And Valencia is an immediate, I think, All-American contender at 141. And I believe there's a chance, depending on the health of Vasquez and these other guys, that Manville goes right away for Penn State at 141. He looked pretty good. 70, which is 154, so you kind of got to assume that these guys are going to go 49 or 57. Kenan Webster was the number 1 seed. PJ Duke teched him. And this is where we start talking about how ridiculous Penn State is. Cody Rutledge from Edmond North, who's going to Nebraska but a year away, makes the finals. Duke wins it. I really believe Kenan Webster's a bona fide All-American threat. When Win Magazine was ranking him, he was ranked like 7th or 8th, even though he wasn't going to wrestle. And Duke is another thing here where it just comes down to, I mean, this is where the rich get richer and Penn State loads up again. 74 kilos, which is 163. D. Lockett, GT, I think you and I watched that match where he ran down Bouzakis together. And I'm friends with Jasper. I've known Jasper since he was in college, who's Lockett's dad. And I told him, I said, this is the first time I saw Ladarian run somebody down. Like, because he's almost never behind. So it was really impressive. And then he beat Seeley in the finals. Give Sem credit. They had 2 guys in the semifinal. Seeley beats Bo Mantanona. Laird Root was in this bracket as well. Obviously, Bouzakis had Lockett beat, or was ahead of him. I shouldn't say had him beat. But tons of, again, I think Bouzakis is committed to Ohio State, Ladarian Oklahoma State, Seeley to Penn State, Mantanona is at Michigan. 79. Noah Mulvaney, who's at Bucknell, made the finals. Really, probably the big story here is Zach Ryder made it all the way out to the finals. Him and Mulvaney had a great match. Will Henkel is in here as well. So Ryder wins the finals. So, again, another guy coming immediately in, sort of college ready for Penn State. And we should give Aspen Wrestling Academy credit here. They had 4 guys in the finals back to back to back to back. The next one up is Aiden Sinclair. He beat Ryder Rogatsky. He beat Rogatsky 10-3. Techfall Nocturne, who I think is really good. And GT Barr was at 86, which is 189. So he's already up to 184. Maybe he gets to 97. Aiden Sinclair, Techfall Barr. I got a chance to talk to Ben afterwards, and he gave him an awesome bear hug. And I told him there's probably only 5 guys in the gym that could have caught him as fast as he was coming at him. Ben looks like he can wrestle again, man, by the way. Like, my man is yoked up. So, looks awesome. And Sinclair, I mean, I don't know what Missouri's going to do because they got Hawks there. The other 2 guys behind him both went portal. Whiting and Sean Harmon. Whiting went to
Minnesota.
Yes, and Harmon went to Oregon State. So Hawks is the guy at 84. Rocky's the guy at 97. I don't know they have a heavyweight. I'm just putting this out there. I would not be shocked if Sinclair goes 97 and Rocky goes heavyweight. Rocky's really tall. His dad's a big guy. His brother's a bigger guy. Like, I would imagine Rocky probably weighs 225 right now. So just something to keep in mind for the Mizzou fans. 92 kilos. Mirasola over Rademacher from Oregon State. Delgado, who is at St. Joe's Regional, who's committed to Cornell, takes 3rd. That's 204. So those guys are all 97 pounders. 97 kilos. Cam McDaniel he looked really good. He beat Mirasola. Burrell from UVA takes third. These guys seem to hit each other all the time. So McDaniel will probably have immediate impact. I'm guessing he's going to go down, but he's almost like a Trumbull where he might go down for a while and then go up. And then 125, which is 275. If people like Grant love to do the math at home. Hopkey was the 1 seed, and he made the semis and lost to Jimmy Mullen, who's out of Virginia Tech. Sahakian, who's committed to Arizona State, beat Daniel Herrera. Then Sahakian beat Atau 10-9 in a great match. And then Sahakian was killing Jimmy Mullen. And then Jimmy Mullen just foot swept him and pinned him. So Mullen wins it. So I think Virginia Tech's got themselves a guy. And obviously, I think Arizona State's got themselves a guy with Sahakian coming in. And the timing for him is pretty much perfect with Colton Schultz heading out. So we covered a lot of different topics today, boys. I want to give a shout out to Joe Jeter, who made the U17 World Team, and I got to hang out in his corner. That was pretty awesome. And a ton of the girls from the Border Brawl crushed it. Louise Jewett won that girls showcase. GT, that girls showcase, I know it's not like an official national title kind of event yet, but man, there was some good wrestling, some good scraps going on there, right?
Yeah, there was some really good wrestling going on. Got a chance to watch a little bit of up close and personal, but as you know, like you miss like most of the matches that are going on because you only can focus on maybe 3 at a time.
Right.
Yeah, but the talent level was outstanding.
I think it's fair for people like this week. I don't even know where there's a ton of live wrestling going on. If, like in Missouri, it's the Freestyle and Greco State Tournament, the qualifier for Fargo. You know, but if you don't have a horse in that race, there you could just spend the weekend, besides watching the Kentucky Derby and the UFC pay-per-view, you could go back and watch a ton of those matches from this last weekend in Vegas. I mean, you're right, Grant. Like I was in the corner for like 4 or 5 people, and you miss like 17 matches trying to, you know, because you can't just show up at the mat. That even without the seniors, because all they did was take the mats out of the auxiliary gym. And I know it's not a gym, but, you know, they kept the floor the same. They kept that up top strip the same. And then the third part, which normally has like 30 mats or something, only had like 8. So you get kind of assigned all over the place, and it's good. I need to get my steps in, getting back on that keto, get my steps in. But
can I give a shout out, David, to somebody?
Is there from Iowa? It's going to be about a wrestling room.
A good chancer from Iowa.
Who?
Drayshawn Ross won U17s at 92 and was OW for the U17s. Big performance. He looked good. That guy is a beast of a child. An absolute beast.
GT, we will allow it. When you get up to
and once again, as you like look at all these guys that compete, there were some heavy hitter names. Like we went through just the whatever U20s, but like
yes,
you can see the heir apparent to like what's going to happen to Fargo at that, you know, U17, U15 category. And you're like, oh yeah, no, these guys are freaking tough.
Yeah. I think most people know that Willie works with us on the Hall of Fame duel. So he and I formed a friendship, and he talks about the U15s. Like this is a chance to kind of see a lot of these kids first. Like first time to really talk to Bill Bassett. Bishop McCourt's coming to Hall of Fame duels, but he had Bo win U20s, Melvin win U17s, and then Keegan, what was it, U15s? I guess he would have won. GT.
I wouldn't know for sure.
He's coming into high school. So it's
one of the lighter weights kids, right?
Oh yeah, he's like 43 kilos. He's like 9,100. Like but a really good, good wrestler. So yeah, I mean, I'm just telling you guys, and this is like we like Flow, we like Intermat, we like Rockfin. Like, if you have your Flow membership, go on there and freaking watch some of those matches. I mean, the Cale Hughes rundown of Land was really good. The Ladarian match we talked about was really good. I mean, there's just so many good matches, though. Like, you just miss them, like GT was saying. And you can stand up top and kind of watch all of them, but you can't really see any of them that well, and if you get on the floor, you kind of position yourself where you can at least see 2 or 3 of them, but it's just overload. It's almost like at NCAAs where you hear the big moan and groan and you already missed the throw or the 5-point move or whatever, the 6-point move, whatever the case may be. 7-point move now in college. So, all right, Mark, do you want to do any more Iowa shout outs before we get out of here? Like, is there like a janitor over there or, anybody else you want to get hooked up?
No, David, I'd like to give a shout out, to you though, because you do a fabulous job doing this. So even though you do pick on me, both of you missed my birthday this year, David. So I can say thanks,
Mark. Your birthday's not in public anywhere. Like you're not on Facebook. That. Well, then how are we supposed to know?
You remembered it last year.
No, you told me last year.
Yeah. Grant, that's all right.
When's your birthday? When is your birthday?
April 29th.
All right. I'm writing it down.
I'm putting it in my Google Calendar right now.
Me too.
And I'm looking for anybody that has a good walker. I could probably use it right about now.
I'm getting two cans of tennis balls for that walker, brother.
There you go. All right. I can get through the doors at Grandview Wrestling Room with the walker, can't I, Grant?
That's absolutely. And we have a nice old cold tub, and hey, because if you're coming into the wrestling room, you're showing technique. You don't get to just sit there and watch. I need you to coach up my guys.
No wall privileges. You have to participate.
Right.
Happy belated birthday,
David, they have bleachers there for me to sit on, and then the coaches come over and visit with me, and a couple of wrestlers did. I'm just that old guy sitting there. They're wondering what he's doing, and they probably thought I was a custodian. Who knows?
I will tell you this, Mark. To be fair, I was out last night and ran into a high school coach who coached against me, and he said, he goes, "You and Ostrander." And GT, this is disgusting. He goes, "You, Ostrander, and the good-looking guy are doing a great job." I shouldn't even tell you that, GT. It's just hurtful on so many levels to Mark and I.
Well, it could have been Fellers because he did a show, Grant.
No,
so maybe,
no.
It could have been.
And Fellers is a good-looking dude. So, hey, we can give him some props and be like, "Hey, Fellers, it could be you."
But he's never been on the show with me and Mark. So, anyway, he did say, Mark, how smart both you guys are. And you noticed, GT, how he said, "David, I want to compliment you on a great job," for no specific reason, not like, "Hey, great point on this," and then just, "By the way, you forgot my birthday." Like that was just, just the pat on the back before the punch to the gut. So, Mark,
this is what we do. This is what we do.
Mark, I got real love for you. Like I was telling that guy, like how the whole thing started with you and me doing rankings and then the pod and all this stuff. And I've worked with great people over the years, but this is as much fun as I've ever had with it. And I should say, Mark was very gracious that we wanted to add Grant because of the international stuff. And, and as freestyle and folk style has more and more of a bigger calendar. And if you love college wrestling, you have to pay attention to U17s and U20s because this is where these dudes are coming from. And the same thing on the girls' side, that girls' showcase, if you could just get all the kids that took third place there, your team would be amazing. So anyway, happy belated birthday to Mark Ostrander. Send him flowers for his 25th birthday. And for Mark and GT, I'm David. We'll speak to y'all next week.